The psychology of people who wake up early. There is a specific texture to the world at 5 a.m., a distinct stillness that feels almost heavy with potential. And for a specific subset of the human population, this silence is not a disruption of rest, but the very essence of their psychological stability. When we observe those who consistently rise before the sun, we often default to societal scripts that label them as hyperproductive, disciplined, or members of elite success clubs. Yet this superficial categorization fails to address the profound internal architecture that drives this behavior. We must ask ourselves, is the act of waking up early truly a result of willpower? Or is it a manifestation of a deeper biological and psychological alignment that dictates how these individuals process reality? The psychology of the early riser is a complex tapestry woven from circadian biology, personality traits, and an often overlooked desire for emotional autonomy in a world that is becoming increasingly noisy. To understand this, we must first peel back the layer of hustle culture that has co-opted early rising and look at the biological baseline known as the chronotype. In psychology and chronobiology, this is not merely a preference, but a genetic predisposition heavily influenced by the PER3 gene, which dictates the length of a person's circadian cycle. Those who genuinely thrive in the early hours, often referred to in literature as larks, possess a biological clock that runs slightly faster than the 24-hour day, prompting a release of melatonin earlier in the evening and a spike in cortisol and body temperature significantly before dawn. This physiological head start creates a psychological ripple effect. These individuals do not wake up fighting their bodies, but rather they wake up in synchronization with them. However, biology is only the canvas. The painting itself is composed of personality traits that urge us to look at the Big Five model, specifically the trait of conscientiousness. Extensive research has consistently found a strong correlation between morningness and high levels of conscientiousness, a trait characterized by efficiency, organization, and a tendency to be dutiful. But if we look closer at the narrative of their lives, we see that this conscientiousness is not just about doing work, it is about the management of anxiety through preparation. For the early riser, the morning hours serve as a psychological buffer zone, a time of proactive coping where they can anticipate the day's stressors and cognitively rehearse their responses before the world demands their attention. This behavior is rooted in a need for control, not necessarily controlling others, but controlling their own internal state before it is subjected to the external chaos of emails, traffic, and social expectations. The silence of the morning offers a cognitive sanctuary where the ego is not yet under attack, allowing for a state of mental integration that is difficult to achieve once the collective consciousness of the world wakes up. Furthermore, there is a fascinating emotional component to this behavior that touches on introversion and the need for restorative niches. While not all early risers are introverts, many utilize the pre-dawn hours to fulfill a psychological need for solitude that they cannot access during the day. In this context, waking up early is an act of self-preservation. It is the only time of day when no one expects anything from them, creating a rare vacuum of responsibility where they can simply exist without performing a social role. This aligns with the concept of autonomy, a core component of self-determination theory. In the dark of the morning, the early riser experiences a profound sense of agency. The world has not yet begun to dictate their actions, and this feeling of ownership over one's time provides a massive psychological dividend of well-being and satisfaction. They are stealing time back from the universe, hoarding these quiet moments to fortify their identity before they have to fragment it for their employers, families, and society. However, we must also explore the shadow side of this disposition, as the psychology of early rising is not purely positive. For some, the inability to sleep in is driven by a heightened cortisol awakening response, which can be linked to anticipatory anxiety. In these cases, the individual wakes up not out of a desire for peace, but out of a physiological inability to remain at rest due to an overactive, vigilant state. They may feel a compulsive need to get ahead because the sensation of falling behind triggers an acute stress response. This creates a feedback loop where their self-worth becomes tangled with their output, and the quiet morning becomes less of a sanctuary and more of a workspace where they attempt to outrun their own insecurities. It is a delicate balance between the healthy proactivity of a morning-oriented person and the neurotic perfectionism that forbids rest. Ultimately, the psychology of the early riser is a narrative of alignment. It is about an individual who has found, whether by genetic accident or cultivated habit, that their mental clarity is highest when the external stimulation is lowest. They are people who experience time differently, viewing the morning not as the start of a grind, but as a sacred space for the self. As we reflect on this, it invites us to question our own relationship with time and the sun. Do we wake up to greet the day, or do we wake up because the day drags us out of bed? The difference between those two states is not just a matter of the alarm clock, but a matter of how we view our existence within the world. Perhaps the secret of the early riser is not that they have more time, but that they have claimed a portion of time that belongs entirely to them, untouched and uncorrupted by the demands of others. Drop a like on this video if you found it useful, and share it with your friends and family members who might find it useful. Thanks for your time, and until next time, keep elevating your mind.